Wow, so this is pretty crazy. So Kanye just appeared on the Tim Pool podcast, right-wing news show host Tim Pool. He appeared on his podcast, and he actually ended up literally walking out. This is pretty crazy. This just actually happened a couple of hours ago on a live stream. I actually ended up watching the whole part in which he was on. He was on from like around a couple minutes in till like I think less than 20 minutes. So I recommend going and watching it. It's only like 10 to 20. I watched it on 2 times speed, I think actually too, so it went even faster. But Kanye is clearly somebody who is very, very troubled, and he is going to walk out, as you guys are going to see here, as he just gets even like the slightest bit of pushback for the anti-Semitic stuff that he has been spewing. Even just the slightest bit, he actually just straight out dips. I personally was very surprised by this, but it's really fascinating to see just how weak he is. I don't know if fickle would be the proper word to use here, but just how like scared he is of any pushback or anything like that. So go ahead and check this out.
You know, to come in here, I feel like it's a setup to be like defending. I'm not going to go through another, like I'm literally going to walk the F off the show if I'm sitting up here having a, talk about you can't say that it was Jewish people that did it when every sensible person knows that. I mean, Jon Stewart knows what happened to me, and they took it too far. It was like American History X. Like my head was on the side of the curve, and the exact people that I called out kicked my head. We found out that my trainer was a MK Ultra Canadian intelligence.
He worked in the defense research and development in the Canadian military, essentially working on psyops in the Canadian military. This is Harley Pasternak.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, look, they tried to medicate me. I was exhausted. They wrongly diagnosed me, and they when I asked them how much lithium did you want to put me on exactly, it took them 4 days to answer because they were embarrassed about the amount, right? And I refused to take this, right? You understand that if I had taken the medication, I would not be here, and it would have been, he was deeply troubled. We miss him. We love his music, though.
Well, they would have Britney Spears too. I mean, look at
they would have Michael Jackson
or worse, yeah.
So look at
what they did. Look at what they did to Britney. When she went in, she was tired, she was exhausted, she was in a bad way. But 10 years of that medication wrecked her brain. You can see it now. Yeah. You can see there's not much of her left.
You mentioned Pasternak was the name.
Yes, Harley Pasternak. That's the text message that you posted that we were talking about before.
That's the lobotomy threat.
Yeah.
Before the show, obviously, I'm getting a bunch of messages from people. People are hitting me up, and they're like, "You shouldn't host them. They're anti-Semitic. They're white supremacists. They're racist." I do find it funny or weird or whatever that, Nick, they call you a white supremacist. You're here working with or for, one of the most powerful black men, one of the wealthiest and most famous. But a lot of people are saying on the right specifically, don't platform them. Yeah. I think they've been extremely unfair to you.
Who was they though? We can't say who they is,
corporate
can we?
press. I'm not using I don't use the word as the way I guess you guys use. I'm talking.
It is
about
them though, isn't it? I mean, because because when you think about it, consider it. In 2018.
What do you mean it's not?
What do I mean? Like, okay, so how about? Are you leaving?
Are you referring to the press?
He's gone. I'll say it right now.
Wow, so that was just an absolutely viral clip. That's definitely a clip that's about to go viral. That's a pretty crazy one. But, he definitely has developed like this martyr complex of his where he's saying, they're taking everything away from me. And so it's making him more and more feel entrenched in his position. And he has this like God complex that he's had for this long time. He even has like a song called I Am a God. But he's kind of hopping between those things where he was used to be rich. Remember, being rich is not being in service of God. In the Bible, for example, it says that like it's easier for a camel to walk through the eye of a needle than for a rich person to enter the kingdom of God. It also says that you can't worship two things, money and God. You have to choose one. So clearly you can't choose both. But he's like a just kind of like a weasel where he just kind of jumps from one to the other. Before he was rich and he was really for God. Now he's still following God because he's taking all this stuff away from him. So it's clearly just this God complex that Kanye has here, where it's just going back and forth. He has this God complex and then the martyr complex. And I don't know if it was included in the clip or not that I showed you guys, because, there's a lot there. I can't show you, obviously, the entire 18 minutes, although I really wish I could, because it's really illustrative and explanatory of what state Kanye is actually in right now. But none of this stuff, logically speaking, actually makes any of his claims correct. Again, even if it were true that it's all these people who are Jewish who are in these situations with him, it wouldn't mean that there's anything specific about Jewish people or anything like that. That doesn't even make sense. Even though it seems even substantively, these claims that are being made of this super over represented group is actually becoming less and less true. Actually, when I know that 4chan had posted some sheet that had a bunch of names of people who were supposedly higher end, powerful people who were Jewish, and it turned out that vast majority of it was false, or a bunch of it was false. So even that isn't even true. But even if you were to grant that, right, hypothetically, it wouldn't mean anything. It wouldn't make sense to just talk about Jewish people specifically. And he's very specific about the Jewish media stuff there, and that's why he ends up walking out. He ends up walking out because Tim Pool is saying they were unfair to you. Him saying they is in the media, the corporate media, and specifically, he's probably talking a lot about liberals as well. He's talking about liberals and then conservatives, but he wasn't talking about the quote, whatever he says, which is Jewish media, which is extremely anti-Semitic. And the reason why you can't say those kinds of things is because of an implication that exists when you do say it, of that there is some kind of sinister thing going on with Jews, as well as it being a very sensitive issue because of obviously the Holocaust and how things the Lügenpresse, by the lying press by Hitler was a big thing, and the stab in the back myth, which is the entire basis of, World War II, this false idea, false lie that basically the reason why they lost was because of Jews. They lost World War I was because of Jews. Totally false. And so there's obviously a lot of sensitivity that exists with this topic because of what happened because of that. And so there's a lot of sensitivity around Black people as well because of the experience that Black people have gone through. And it's even more so that case for Jewish people because they have gone through even worse circumstances, right? 6 million were, killed in an attempted genocide, right? So that's what's going on. And so, again, I just don't know why he's just going so hard on this because he's just not correct. He's just wrong. And so I understand that his thing here now is he's this martyr and all of this stuff, and that's the reason why he is going so hard. But none of that actually makes you correct on it. But he's so convinced he's correct. And what you can see Kanye is doing now is he's just surrounding himself with a bunch of yes men. And so now he's hanging out with Milo, Yiannopoulos, and Nick Fuentes, who are both super anti-Semites, basically. And so those are now the people that he's associating himself with, because when he gets around somebody who even slightly criticizes him, and by the way, the Lex Fridman interview was a joke. That was the lightest pushback I've ever seen in my life. I saw him push back so hard on Destiny, saying stuff about Joe Rogan's audience, and it was just laughable because obviously loser Lex Fridman has to carry water for his right-wing audience. And so he's going to push back at Destiny, but then when it's Kanye, it's going to be super weak and just loser garbage that he did in his interview. So that was even weak. So the fact that's something where it's a setup interview, it's okay. It's also sad to see that all these people are trying to take advantage of Kanye in this complete manic state and bring him on Nori on Drink Champs is a huge one, and all of this other stuff. David Pakman was trying to get him on too to try to eat off the clout. Everybody's just trying to clout chase with this mental maniac basically. And so you can just see how he really does not like pushback at all. And it's just really crazy to see, where he has come and just how horrible of a state this guy's in. It's unbelievably sad, to be quite honest with you.